There are books that were never meant to be read, words buried beneath centuries of silence, truths cast out by councils, kings, and clergy. This is the story of the lost books of the Bible, the forbidden texts they tried to erase from history. The Bible, a sacred compilation of divine wisdom. But what if the Bible we know is incomplete? Behind the polished verses of the canon lies a shadowy trail, scrolls left out, burned, buried, or banished. In the desert sands of Egypt and the crumbling monasteries of Syria, archaeologists have uncovered scrolls that challenge everything, books that speak of angels and watchers, of lost prophets and cosmic wars, of a Christ who taught in riddles, and of a God far more complex than we were told. These are the lost books, the heretical Gospels, the Apocrypha, the secrets they tried to silence. There are more Gospels than Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. In fact, dozens more. The Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, the Gospel of Judas, and the Gospel of Thomas, found in the Nag Hammadi Library in 1945, contains 114 hidden sayings of Jesus. But unlike the canonical Gospels, Thomas offers no miracles, no crucifixion, only parables. Mysterious sayings like, "Split a piece of wood and I am there." Then there is the Gospel of Mary, not the mother of Jesus, but Mary Magdalene. Here she is not a prostitute, but a disciple, a leader, a voice of spiritual authority. It was she who received visions and secret teachings. The Gospel of Judas paints yet another picture of betrayal as divine destiny. In this book, Judas is not a villain, but the only one who truly understood Jesus. It turns betrayal into sacrifice. These books were not lost by accident. They were erased, methodically, intentionally. In the year 325 AD, the Roman Emperor Constantine convened the Council of Nicaea. It was here, behind closed doors and guarded palaces, that the core of Christianity was rewritten. The bishops debated fiercely. What books belong? What teachings are divine? What stories are dangerous? And so a choice was made. The canon, 27 books of the New Testament, was solidified. The rest, condemned, labeled as heresy, branded as blasphemy. Entire libraries were burned. Gospels were hidden in jars, buried in caves, sealed away in remote monasteries. It wasn't just about faith. It was about control. But why erase them? What threat did they pose? Because they spoke of empowerment, of divine knowledge hidden within. Many of the lost texts are Gnostic in nature. The word gnosis means knowledge, but not of the mind, of the soul. The Gospel of Truth, attributed to Valentinus, speaks of the human spirit trapped in a world of illusion, seeking the light within. The Book of Enoch tells of angels who fell from heaven to mate with humans, giving rise to giants and chaos. These stories clash with the simple narrative. They imply that salvation doesn't come from blind obedience, but from inner awakening to an empire that relied on order, obedience, and hierarchy. Such ideas were dangerous. The Book of Enoch is perhaps the most stunning omission. Quoted, even in the New Testament, yet cast out. Enoch was the great-grandfather of Noah. He is said to have walked with God and vanished into the heavens. In the book bearing his name, he journeys through realms of angels, cosmic prisons, and end-time prophecies. He witnesses the fall of the Watchers, angels who lusted after human women. He sees the fate of the wicked, the judgment of the righteous, and a Messiah seated on a throne of glory. Why was this book erased? Because it paints a universe teeming with spirits, secrets, and divine warfare. A vision too wild, too ungovernable, too Gnostic. Mary Magdalene. Her name echoes in scandal, yet in the apocryphal texts, she is radiant with wisdom. In the Gospel of Mary, she comforts the disciples after Jesus' death. She reveals visions. She is the one he loved most, not in flesh, but in spirit. Peter opposes her. He cannot accept a woman as the bearer of secret knowledge, and so her gospel, like her role, was buried. But buried does not mean lost. In 1945, a farmer in Nag Hammadi, Egypt, stumbled upon a sealed jar. Inside were 13 leather-bound codices containing over 50 texts long thought lost: the Gospel of Thomas, the secret book of John, the Apocalypse of Adam, words untouched by centuries of censorship. These texts speak of dual realities, of an ignorant creator God and a higher divine realm, of Sophia, the fallen goddess of wisdom, of light hidden within flesh. It was a bombshell, a glimpse into early Christianity's chaotic poetic diversity. What is Revelation? Is it the end or the unveiling? The canonical Book of Revelation is mysterious. Beasts, horns, dragons, trumpets. But other apocalyptic texts go further. The Apocalypse of Peter reveals graphic visions of heaven and hell. The Apocalypse of Paul describes the soul's journey through celestial spheres. And then there's the second treatise of the Great Seth, where Jesus laughs at his crucifixion, revealing it as an illusion. In these texts, death is not the end, but a passage, and truth is not given. It is remembered. The forbidden books are rising again. In dusty archives, in museum basements, in digital libraries shared across the globe, they raise unsettling questions. Who decides what is holy? What else has been hidden? And what happens when the silenced voices are finally heard? Perhaps the Bible is not a book, but a library, with missing volumes still echoing their truths through time. The lost books are not just ancient scrolls. They are mirrors, reflecting the hidden chambers of the soul. They urge us to question, to seek, to remember. They speak of a divine spark within us all, waiting to be awakened. In a world of noise, these forbidden whispers call us home. Not to a church, but to the silence within. What if the greatest truths were never lost, only hidden? And now, you have heard them. But to understand why these texts were cast into darkness, we must go deeper into the politics of power and the shaping of belief. The early followers of Jesus did not speak with one voice. Some saw him as the Jewish Messiah, others, a divine being from the heavens. Still others believed he never died at all, that his crucifixion was symbolic, not physical. The Gospel of Philip dares to speak of sacred union, of the divine masculine and feminine. It calls Mary Magdalene the companion of Christ, and says he often kissed her, not for lust, but for transmission of spiritual knowledge. This gospel describes a sacrament lost to time, the bridal chamber, where two souls unite in perfect harmony, mirroring the union of humanity and the divine. But in a world ruled by patriarchy, such balance was heresy. The feminine was exiled, the mystical was suppressed, and the institutional church rose in its place. With structure, doctrine, hierarchy, the secret book of John offers a cosmic mythology unlike anything in the Bible. It tells of a perfect, invisible spirit, and of Sophia, wisdom herself, who acted alone and birthed a flawed creator, Yaldabaoth. This being, ignorant of the higher realms, declares, "I am God, and there is no other." And thus begins the material world, a realm of illusion, ruled by archons, cosmic jailers. This worldview wasn't atheism. It was radical spirituality, saying that salvation lies not through ritual, but through inner remembrance. That each soul is a spark of the divine, trapped in flesh, yearning to awaken. Such teachings threatened the very foundation of church and state. By the 4th century, the Roman Empire had absorbed Christianity. What was once a persecuted sect became a state religion, wielded not for liberation but for control. The Council of Hippo in 393 AD and later Carthage finalized the canon. Any text outside the 66 books of Protestant Bibles, or the 73 of Catholic Bibles, was labeled apocryphal, or worse, demonic. Books like Book of Enoch, Jubilees, and the Wisdom of Solomon disappeared from Western traditions, though some remained, sacred in places like Ethiopia, where the Book of Enoch still lives in the Ethiopian Orthodox canon to this day. In medieval times, owning forbidden texts was punishable by death. The Inquisition hunted heretics who dared to question the orthodoxy. Gnostic Gospels were torched. Monks copied only what Rome allowed, and yet, whispers survived. In secret societies, in mystical sects, in the dreams of poets and prophets, the Cathars of southern France, a Gnostic-inspired Christian movement, taught of two gods, one of light, one of matter. They rejected the church's authority, and for this, they were slaughtered in a brutal crusade, burned as heretics, erased from history, but not completely. Some believe the Cathars preserved ancient scrolls, hiding them in caves and chasms of the Pyrenees. Legends tell of a sacred book still waiting to be found. Today, the internet is the new desert, where ancient texts rise from digital tombs. The Gospel of Mary, the Apocalypse of Adam, the Pistis Sophia, all translated, all searchable, all alive again. And as we read them, we must ask, what is truth? Is it what survives or what was silenced? The church claimed unity, but beneath that surface was a raging sea of voices, mystics, rebels, visionaries. They spoke not just of dogma, but of experience, of visions, of divine fire. The Apocryphon of James reveals Jesus appearing to James and Peter after his resurrection, not to instruct, but to awaken them. Become better than I, he says. Be like me. Not follow, become. This is the forgotten message. That divinity is not distant. It is within. That we are not sheep, but sparks. That the kingdom of heaven is not a place, but a state of being. The lost books call us not to believe blindly, but to see, to know, to remember. And as we continue, deeper still, the line between myth and mystery begins to blur. Imagine a Jesus who laughs at death, who speaks in riddles, who whispers to his disciples that the material world is a prison and the only way out is to awaken. In the second treatise of the Great Seth, Jesus declares that he was never truly crucified, that it was a deception. He watched from above, laughing as the Romans executed someone in his place. To modern ears, it sounds blasphemous. But to the Gnostics, it was revelation. To them, Jesus was not just a man, but a divine emanation sent to awaken sleeping souls. The crucifixion was not a tragedy, but an illusion, a veil over the truth. This isn't just revision, it's revolution. And it wasn't just Jesus who was transformed. The very nature of God was challenged. In Gnostic cosmology, the God of the Old Testament, wrathful, jealous, vengeful, is not the true God. He is a lower deity created by Sophia's Fombal, a blind creator who thinks himself supreme but is trapped in ignorance. His name is Yaldabaoth, the Demiurge, He fashioned the world not as a paradise, but as a cage, a world of matter, suffering, and death, a counterfeit reality. But above him, beyond the stars, is the true God, the source, pure light, incomprehensible. And we, humanity, carry sparks of that original light within us. The Gnostics saw humanity not as fallen, but as amnesiacs. We forgot who we are. And the purpose of Christ was not to die for sin, but to remind us of our origin. This worldview was a threat to any institution built on obedience, on fear, on control, and so it had to be silenced. Entire generations were taught that questioning doctrine was sin, that salvation came through priests and sacraments, not introspection. Yet still, the whispers came. In the apocryphal Acts of John, Jesus is described as appearing in many forms, sometimes a youth, sometimes an old man, sometimes as light itself. During his final night, he dances in a circle with his disciples, singing a hymn of cosmic unity. Understand who I am, he says, what I am. I am not what you see. This mystical Christ was buried beneath centuries of dogma, but never entirely lost. Fragments survived in the East, among mystics, monks, and desert sages. In the West, they lingered in symbols: the rose, the cross, the chalice, clues for those with eyes to see. The Pistis Sophia, another lost gospel, tells the story of the goddess Wisdom, Sophia, and her descent into chaos. She is trapped in darkness and cries out for the light. Again and again she repents. Again and again she is lifted, not by judgment but by grace. Hers is the story of every soul seeking its way home. But there is more, much more. The Apocalypse of Adam speaks of a flood sent not by God, but by corrupted angels. It warns of future rulers who will claim to speak for heaven, but serve only themselves. The trimorphic protonoia reveals the voice of the divine feminine saying, I am the thought of the Father. I dwell in those who dwell in the light. She is not absent. She is the silent breath behind all things. Even the infancy Gospels, once read widely, show a different side of Christ. A child Jesus who commands birds to fly, who raises a friend from the dead, who speaks with wisdom far beyond his years. These were not bedtime stories. They were lessons, metaphors wrapped in miracle. What was lost was not just pages, but possibilities. A Christianity that honored mystery over certainty, experience over hierarchy, feminine and masculine, light and shadow, heaven and earth. Today, the question isn't why were they hidden? It's what are we afraid to remember? Because these books don't just alter theology, they invite transformation. They say you are not broken, you are divine, not condemned, but asleep. The time to awaken is now. As we near the final chapters of this journey into the lost books, we find ourselves standing at a crossroads. The sacred, the forbidden, the forgotten, they all lead us here, to this very moment, where ancient secrets long buried now rise from the shadows. But why does this matter? Why should we care about these forgotten gospels and scriptures? The answer lies not just in history, but in us, today. In the age of information, we are often inundated with voices that speak louder than our own. In a world dominated by dogma, it's easy to forget that there was once a time when belief was free, diverse, and malleable. The early Christians were not united in a single vision. They were like us, searching for answers and finding them in different places. The lost books remind us of that diversity, of a time when questions were just as important as answers. These texts offer us glimpses into different worlds, where the divine was not something imposed from above, but something that lived within, waiting to be awakened. And perhaps that is the real secret these books hold. They speak of a world where spiritual truth is not a set of rules to be followed, but an unfolding mystery to be experienced. A world where salvation is not a distant promise, but a living reality. The lost Gospels, the apocryphal texts, and the ancient scriptures they tried to erase all point to one thing: divinity is within us all. It's not something we must earn or beg for. It's a part of who we are, waiting to be remembered. In the Gospel of Philip, we find the phrase, "The world came into being through a great power, and the world will pass away through that same power." It's a reminder that what we seek is not outside of us but within us, tapping into the power of creation that we are born with. These books offer no grand promises of salvation through obedience. Instead, they urge us to remember who we truly are. But the powers that be have always feared such a vision. A world where individuals awaken to their own divinity? That would be a world where control falters and truth becomes a matter of personal experience, not institutional doctrine. And so these texts were erased. They were silenced. But their voices have never truly gone quiet. They whisper in the margins of our lives, in the cracks of our existence, in the dreams of those who dare to look deeper. Today, as we stand in the light of the digital age, these ancient texts are no longer locked away. They are accessible, searchable, and ready to be rediscovered. They invite us to reconsider what we know and to seek out the truths we've been denied. The Gospel of Mary, the Apocalypse of Peter, the Book of Enoch, the secret Book of John, they are not just relics of a forgotten past. They are keys to a deeper understanding of who we are, why we are here, and where we are going. They are not meant to be worshipped as holy books, but as guides to awaken our inner knowing. As we close this chapter, we are reminded that the story is far from over. The lost books of the Bible are not just ancient history. They are living texts waiting to shape the future. They are the forgotten keys to the mysteries of the divine. They offer us the chance to break free from the constraints of tradition, to embrace a personal journey of awakening, and to find our own path to truth. Perhaps it's time we stop asking the same old questions, questions of who is right, who is wrong, and instead ask ourselves this: what is true for you? And what truths have we yet to discover, lying dormant, waiting for us to unlock them? The lost books of the Bible may have been erased from history, but their message of inner knowing, of personal truth, of spiritual awakening, has never been silenced. It is a message that is as relevant today as it ever was. And now the choice is ours. Will we listen?